Hello, my name is Ron and I'm a Partner Development Manager at Microsoft Hong Kong. I'm also a volunteer at YET, working across with a number of startups and youth groups looking to technology startups. Now I want to talk about entrepreneurship at Microsoft. When we think Microsoft, probably not the first word that comes to mind. Now once I entered the company, I learned there's a variety of activities and programs that are aimed internally and externally that's helping out with the entrepreneur spirit. Now let's start with the internal. We actually have internal hackathons that are taking place worldwide. There's portals where we form groups and share ideas across the globe, from the US, from Europe, Hong Kong, Japan, where we're just collaborating on different ideas. We can form teams locally, or we can form teams with different colleagues from across the globe. Now what happened is we actually come up with a solution to a problem that's dear to our hearts, and we use the technology that Microsoft offers for a prototype, then we present to the local team. And if we are lucky enough and move on to the next round, we actually get to pitch it in the worldwide stage. There's a number of case studies on YouTube and other video sources where we can find some of these projects. And some of them has actually rolled out into more prototype and ready for commercial stages. So these are something very exciting about that's changing in the culture of Microsoft. Now, to extend that, we're actually working a lot with youths as well. So locally, we have a program called Girl Spark, where we're promoting technology to young girls. From university, high school, we're promoting more girls into this field because we see a low number of participation previously. And moving forward, we'll actually have different youth programs as well. One of them that has just passed, which YET was also part of, was the imaginecup. This is where students get together and pitch their ideas to groups locally. So we had a Hong Kong a challenge, and there's other locations in Japan, Argentina, worldwide, where the winners get to compete for $100,000 in the US in July. So this is an annual event that takes place. And a few years ago, the winner from Hong Kong actually was an award winner in the event in US as well. He's won some seed money, but he's decided, you know what, he's going to pursue a career in Microsoft instead. So now he's actually with Microsoft Hong Kong as a technical account manager. So there's a lot of ways where we're participating in youth development. And to extend on that, we actually have startup programs like the leapfrog program, where we're offering cloud credits. But what we're finding out is just giving them credit is not enough. So this year, they're rolling out with Microsoft for startups, where they're offering more resources, more help, more development help to these startups rather than just credits. And what's something Microsoft is good at is not just these entrepreneur spirits, but also the commercialization. So in this Microsoft for Startup, it's actually lining up with our commercial units, which I'm actually part of, where we're taking them from idea to POC, proof of concept, all the way to commercialization, where we help co-market and co-sell their product and slowly move them into our Microsoft partner ecosystem. And finally, it's not just startups and small teams that we're working with in terms of these new entrepreneurship type projects, working with other large companies as well, helping them with their hackathons. Because we're involved with so many different types of hackathons and different incubators, large companies are now coming to us and asking, how can we actually get more innovative and more creative? So we're actually running events and hackathons with these companies where they're inviting others internally and externally to participate in solving problems in a unique manner. So for instance, last year, Microsoft Hong Kong had a hackathon with SmartTone, where we're inviting their internal employees as well as external startups to come up with ideas to solve a problem that they have posted out. So these are just some of the examples that we're now solving. And as Microsoft, we're no longer just selling your Windows and your Office. I mean, those are still very, very important to us. But now we're reaching out to independent software vendors that they're coming up with these unique solutions, whether it's IoT or AI or some of these applications that we're now seeing all over the place. We're now looking into those as some of our extensions and what our cloud could be offering. So some of the next steps that we're now looking into, were announced in Microsoft Build just last month. So some of the direction would be into the AI world. It's something that's very, very, very hot right now and everyone's looking into, but it's not what the AI could be doing, but what we should be doing with it. So now we're looking to startups and new companies to see what they can come up with and how they're going to solve some of the problems around the world. And another trend that we're seeing great development is in IoT, which sort of, I guess, in companies with the AI initiatives as well, is how do we do edge computing? So now that we can leverage our Azure public cloud, what can we do with the devices that's around the world. So Microsoft's actually partnering with a number of hardware companies to make these happen. So all in all, I think the entrepreneurship spirit in Microsoft is propelling a lot of these companies forward and a lot of these partnerships forward, where it's promoting a lot of these thinkings outside the box. So it's not as traditional as it used to be. And now it's time to think about what we should be doing with this technology now that we can be making technology with it. So from some of my experience, there's a bit of disconnect between what the world sees and what the corporation sees. So in the past, I've been through a couple of pitch competitions, startup incubators, these ideology labs about how to do these startup projects. And at those times, Microsoft does not come up as a name. Startups, entrepreneurship. It just wasn't a name that popped up. And I think a lot of it has to do with the disconnection between what we know as students or startup members, founders, versus what the corporations actually got to offer. And this is something that I feel that Microsoft has now been picking up a lot more on and now pushing a lot further. So some of the programs we talked about for youth and for startups, we're now not only reaching out to institutions like universities locally, but now we're pushing it out towards audience in the incubator space, the co-work space, through social media outlets. So we're getting a bit more creative now in terms of reaching out to these audience, not just to push sales and licenses, but some of the offers that we have. And we're going around and trying to inspire some of these founders. We're now going out with case studies of what people are doing, not only locally, but these successful stories and customer stories worldwide, and telling them what people are doing around the world with our technology, or how they're achieving what they want to do, leveraging what we have. So these are the ways that we're now reaching out, which was not seen before when I guess I was in school a couple of years ago. And this definitely helps on the brainstorming because we don't know what we don't have, right? There's a lot of tools and gadgets out there that we could be leveraging on. That would save me a lot of time. There's experts out there that could answer questions. There's forums, there's courses, there's tutorials out there that a lot of companies are offering, which I think a lot of students and startups don't know. And when I'm listening in onto a lot of these pitches, they're going to be developing these tools that already exist, right? And when we find out about these tools ahead of time, when we develop them, we can save ourselves a lot of time potentially. So I think it's very important that when we're now reaching out to them on a very early stage, before we even know that they're trying to develop something, right? So we're reaching out to the demographics that might be potentially younger, which weren't our audience before. So now we're reaching out to the younger crowd. We're reaching out to a wider crowd. Maybe it's not just technology people we need to reach out to. It's also the business leaders, all the business students out there. We're finding that reach becoming a lot more important rather than focusing and narrowing it on the technology sector. So with that wide range of pool talent spreading across different industries, we're finding a huge impact of what they're bringing back. The business students, the business ideas come up, but you need someone to actually execute it. And technology students come in and they try to accommodate for what the ideas have to offer. And accompanying them is our technology and how they can leverage it, and showing them what others are doing, what's upcoming, and what they should be expecting next. That saves them a lot of time. And this time to market is very key right now, as everyone is competing for time. And that's what a lot of our tools could be doing, and I wish I had access to when I was coming up with these ideas. So these are the things that I think Microsoft is doing very proactively now. So with other technology partners as well, to reach out to these audience that otherwise wouldn't have reached out to us. So a few years ago, I was actually involved with a startup myself. And a couple years back, I think the requirement to go into a startup was relatively straightforward. You have an idea, come up with a website, you start pitching for it. And like most others know, that's when the apps were coming up, and if you were adventurous, you come up with some of the apps that would do some of your ideas to come up. Now, back then, my partners, they had to develop them from scratch. It takes a lot of time to do what seems to be very simple these days. So the investors, the guys that are doing the evaluation, they get relatively impressed. You see something that's out on an app, it's on a mobile phone, it works on the internet, it was great, it was a great time. Now, fast forwarding a couple of years, those are basics. If that's not even a qualifier anymore. People are expecting a lot more. Things are moving faster. People are going to ask you about blockchains. They're going to ask you about AI. They're going to ask you about data. These were things that we did not even think about before, right? These are topics that require a lot of expertise in. Not every programmer is going to be an expert in data. Not every expert in data is going to be able to translate that into business value, right? So I think the requirement for these type of expertise in the various fields in one single entity has really strengthened. And that creates a challenge for some of these new startups and new entrepreneurs. How can you become an expert on all these topics simultaneously as it's developing so quickly? And I think that's something that we can start leveraging other experts on. Not to say that they need to be your founders. You don't need 12, 13 founders. You can start leveraging them as advisors and as people you can ask to and go to if you come across these problems. And I think this is where a lot of large companies would have a better sense of in terms of where development's going. What is the market demanding right now? Okay, because you can come up with great ideas, but it's got to merge with reality and what the market needs. Okay, you may be able to identify a niche that you can solve, but at the end, it needs to be a problem that the market acknowledges. So this is something that some of our programs, I think, are helping to solve now in terms of the topics of expertise. Okay, because it's as a big organization, we'll have an expert on a wide variety of topics. If not ourselves, then we have partners that will be able to answer some of those questions. Now, in terms of reality, we help people bring their ideas back onto the landing ground. How do you roll this out? Some of the great ideas require some reality checks. They need to know what the market is demanding and how they can roll it out so that the market can actually accept it in a rightful manner. Now, not all projects roll out perfectly seamlessly and commercialized, no problem, right? It goes through iterations. And some of the teams that participate in some of our programs, they go through these exercises where they're trying to make these business cases, they're trying to make these problem statements and solution for these problems. And they realize what they thought were problems may not actually be problems, and the solutions may not be something that the market could actually digest. So I think there's a lot of value in learning what's the resources that's available to them. And then secondly, how does reality actually respond to what they have to offer? And at the end of the programs, it's either you come up with a really, really good product, it's going to commercialize, it's going to be great, it's going to be the next unicorn. If not, it's another iteration of learning what reality needs and how do you perfect that process when you go on to your next project. And rarely do we see these entrepreneurs stopping at one project. Okay, it goes well, it doesn't, it's a learning curve, and they go for it again. Rarely do they stop at 1, 2, and it gets highly addicting over time. Even for myself, I get excited seeing some of these projects roll out. Even when they fail, you see what they're learning and what they have to offer next. So it's an exciting time to be an entrepreneur. It's a very stressful time because there's a lot of things going on. But at the same time, I think they can be leveraging some of the offerings that corporations have to help them roll it out into reality. Hello, I'm Ron. I actually started out my journey as a chemical engineer. I did a couple of startups and actually ended up in the corporate world. So some of my friends would, challenge me, hey, how did that even happen? Like, do you even like startups or even an entrepreneur? There's a lot of challenges going in. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say pressure, but there's a lot of questions when you dive into a large corporation like Microsoft, right? After all these years, you've been convincing them, what, startup's the way to go. You love entrepreneurship. It seems to be going against everything I've been working towards. So just to go back a little bit, so from an engineering background, I like solving problems. It's something I like to do. I also learned that I'm not very good at developing these solutions. So I was very good at gathering partners. I was very good at gathering resources. So last couple of startups I tried together, I had partners who were very, very smart. They're very capable. And we actually developed a few products that actually rolled out to the market. And that sort of gets you hooked on to this startup world. It's addicting because you're always solving problems, you're always getting attacked, and you're always getting these new competition coming in. And that drive is very, very addicting. And over time, you just want to keep doing it and keep doing more. And you're going to find more problems because there's always more problems than there are solutions. So you always want to keep solving these problems. Now, over time, now that I've convinced friends and family startup's the way to go, I suddenly dive into the corporate world. So they're going, well, what are you doing, Ron? You've been convincing us for years now that startup's the way to go. Now you jump into the corporate world. Now, here's something I guess I've learned over time. I mean, besides having bills to pay, going to Microsoft was actually kind of one of the best moves I made. Going in, I realized there's a lot more than the corporate world in Microsoft. I learned actually a lot more about entrepreneurship and how I can roll ideas out. So in there, we've actually worked with a number of startups and taking them from the proof of concept stage to commercialization to scaling them up. Now, this is something that we cannot do as startups as quickly because of the things we see. It's very limited, very narrow. I think accompanying those experience from a startup and what the corporate has to offer, I can actually accelerate. And actually, it's feeding me my addiction for these startups, because I'm now participating in the development of many startups. I know I'm not the founder, I'm not the investor, but I'm getting involved. I'm helping them solve these solutions. And like I said before, solving these problems is addicting. And these are the experts on these problems. So we need to trust them. But what we could do is get involved and help them out. And that gets me out of bed every day trying to solve these solutions with them. It's not like we're trying to take credit for what they're doing, but it's nice to be involved. It's a way to get involved with startups and then to have them realize their dreams through these commercialization stages. So it's a weird sort of a mix right now between trying to do a startup or doing a startup, having startups on the side even, and actually having a corporate job where you're helping them commercialize. It's not always about the money, but you definitely need some of the money to sustain the operation. So, and throughout the journey, I feel like I've learned a lot about how to prove the concept and present the solution. That's some of the challenges I feel that startups are getting not stuck on, but they need to work on, is how do they present their solution in a very appealing way to investors and people with these problems. And I feel like that's something, if I had known years ago when I was doing my startup, I would have done maybe a little better than what I'm now, which I'm enjoying right now. But I could now share my experience with the startup founders that are going through the same struggles, because I can now relate with them. And hopefully I can help them commercialize and scale to a point that I've never had the chance to back when I was doing my own startup.